Hello everyone. Today I made Final Fantasy VIII give me this funny screenshot. And here's how. In detail. Don't look at the runtime. Final Fantasy VIII as a video game is one I like a lot and have a lot of nostalgia for. It takes me back to long gone days of a tiny fruity sitting in the dark before a glowing CRT screen and discussing strategies with friends on the playground at primary school. It is also a game that, by a lot of less personal measures, probably isn't very good. In terms of the plot, it's all just abject nonsense. In terms of pacing, it falls off a cliff after the first of 4 discs. And in terms of mechanics, it is a complete mess. Arguably more so than any other game in the series. However, I think there's still a lot to love, and at any rate, while we're here, you don't have to play the game at all. So let's be nice. The game opens with a classic big-budget Squaresoft CG. There's just nothing else that looks quite like these, before or since. And it really immediately puts into perspective how much the game has changed since FF7. From a purely graphics point of view. In the intervening years, the team has been perfecting their craft on other titles. A notable standout being the visceral, goopy, nasty work done on Parasite Eve. Say what you want about the actual game itself, but this stuff is beautiful. You know, I really like Parasite Eve, but when I say that to people, they think I'm joking. This style of CG would peak, in my opinion, in the fantastic Front Mission 3. I'm specifically thinking of the Midas Bomb cutscene. Powerful. And we're straight in with the Gunblade, a classic of 90s fantasy sci-fi hybrid weapon design. You know, public opinion on FF8 these days seems to trend pretty positive, but it wasn't always like that. The 2000s were a dark time.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Gamer Logic. I've actually been meaning to do a video about this thing for quite some time.
Especially in the aftermath of the Spoony One series of videos on the topic. Gamers were mad as hell that FF8 was so well loved. The Gunblade is emblematic of that time to me. It is on the surface an edgy, silly design that even someone with no understanding of either gun or sword can immediately tell it's probably not going to function as an actual weapon. The new wave of angry video game nerds tore into it. Back in the day, I remember hearing more about how silly this sword was than the actual game the sword is from. For those of you who didn't have to endure those bad days, a pistol grip is designed the way it is so you can quickly and easily align your hand and your eye, the two parts of you that are used in shooting. This is not necessary with a sword, and putting a pistol grip on there just puts a lot of extra strain on your wrist. A lot of swords have big fancy hilts or handguards to distribute the weight more evenly between the blade and the handle, as the lower the centre of balance, the easier the weapon is to manoeuvre. But the Gunblade has all the weight at the front. It would be difficult to use a sword like this to deliver anything but slow, clumsy swings. Putting a sword on the end of a pistol similarly gives you a firearm with horrible balance, if you could even hold it up like that. The fans seem to have decided that's 2.5 feet of solid steel you're holding up along with, but notably separate from, the pistol you're trying to aim. It's also been argued that stabbing someone with your gun is going to clog up the barrel with blood and guts and things, although it's notable that there is historical precedent for sword-gun hybrids. The designs just tend to be less, shall we? Less 90s. Additionally, you know, bayonets exist.
Weapons with the sharp edge and everything. This is considered a deadly weapon.
Steadying the barrel with your other hand would also be possible. Yeah, you'd have to hold the sharp bit, but that's just not out of the question as long as you don't deliberately saw into your own hand, although the weapon has no sights, front or rear. In fact, it's not really clear what exactly the pistol part of the gunblade is supposed to be adding. Later series entries do have gunblades that are capable of actually firing bullets, but Squall's seemingly does not, even when facing off directly against users of the other type of gunblade in Dissidia. In gameplay terms, pulling the trigger is something you do mid-strike, producing a fiery explosion and an extra chunk of damage. I've heard fan theories that rather than fire any kind of projectile, the intention is that the explosion causes the blade to vibrate, like Raiden Metal Gear's high-frequency sword. It's not so lame now, is it? Okay, maybe it is.
Well, the only thing I have in my wallet is like $30. It was like 20, $30. And I said, that's all I got. And he goes, well, why don't you go to an ATM? I said, I don't really like to carry cash around with me. That's why I don't have that much cash. So he said,
Whoa! The characters other than Squall and Cypher we won't be seeing for a while. They're just filling up time for the music to build. Putting aside how unwieldy their silly fantasy weapons are, and all the jumping, spinning, and overswinging, I do think it's cool that they managed to give Cypher and Squall very different fighting styles. Squall adopts a linear stance with the blade in two hands, and goes for a lot of big old chops, looking a lot more like what might pass for orthodox in this crazy world. Cypher's default stance is very open and one-handed, giving him an arrogant demeanour while looking similar enough to how someone might use a saber to not be entirely ridiculous. He alternates between cutting and thrusting, and also holds his gunblade to the side, making each swing a kill shot. This said, I can't not mention that blocking on the underside of your gunblade like this, without any kind of handguard, is a good way to lose some fingers. The most notable part of this scene is obviously that it both looks and sounds absolutely amazing, though. Okay, you're 10 years old. Your experience with video games is Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, and Gex 3, Deep Cover Gecko.
I got both of them.
You don't even know the system. Heck, you don't even know the medium is capable of rendering people who don't look like Lego Man. Your parents come home with a new game, you fire it up, and you agree to this. Your homework is not getting done tonight. That's the headspace I'm in when I watch this cutscene. Just childlike wonder. The other association is obviously the grim knowledge that old Spoony Experiment series has not aged as well as we might like.
For those of you who can't speak Latin, the chorus is saying real gay, sissy gay, 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 sissy gay, gay.
It was a different time. Now, conventional wisdom would tell you that these choices are invisibly earning you points towards your eventual seed rank, once we get into the part of the game where that's a thing. However, if that was ever intended, they forgot to hook up the choices to any consequences on the back end. As is, the choices mostly do nothing, and the scene advances almost exactly the same either way. Nonetheless, when confronted with such decisions, we will be following the 3-point code of the mercenary. Be polite, be efficient, and have a plan to kill everyone you meet. The correct answer in this case is, I'm okay. A real seed would never complain of a headache, even if they were a 17-year-old child who'd just had his face cut off in a sword duel. Most of the time, though, Squall will just act like a jackass all on his own. Squall Leonhardt. Age 17, height 5'8". The taciturn and reluctant hero. A cadet in Seed, the special combat unit of the Balam Garden Military Academy. His aloof and antisocial behaviour makes him appear selfish and lacking a sense of team unity. Squall dislikes having others involved in his affairs, and is best described as a lone wolf. Interesting fact here. Squall is actually the rarest form of male. A sit. Quistis Treep. Trape? Age 18, height 5'6". A top-notch member of Seed who serves as Squall's instructor. A Seed cadet at the age of 15, Quistis now instructs Squall and his companions at Balam Garden. Contrary to her cool exterior, she occasionally has a difficult time coping with frustration, and as a result, can become depressed over trivial matters. I hope not. Sad he is going to be miserable enough for the both of us. It was actually both us and Cypher. We don't see Squall strike hit home in the opening CG, but the two have matching scars now. Apparently Cypher wasn't admitted to the infirmary though, he just walked it off. Maybe he drank a healing potion or something. Now, we are about to see two quite magical things, so pay attention. Firstly, as Squall goes nearer to the screen, we'll see he has a little bandage on his head. He had this in the previous scene too, and I think these are the only times it's ever used. I'm pointing out here because I remember suddenly having that revelation as he walked down this corridor, the first time I ever played on not a CRT television. I had one of the old huge TVs for ages, you know. I remember playing Halo 3 multiplayer on a CRT back in the day. Nobody else is talking about these things in 2024. For any children in the audience, a cathode ray tube television is one of those giant brick TVs you sometimes see in movies about the distant past. They are, as they might seem, extremely heavy. Bulky enough to kill a man, as demonstrated on Dan Aykroyd in the climax of Grosse Point Blank. They also give poor quality picture and a fishbowling effect that warps the outside edges of the screen. I remember worrying that with the widespread adoption of liquid crystal displays, LCD televisions, my field of view would be worse than the other gamers. To counter this, in my own imagination, I developed a style of very wiggly, back and forth, unpredictable movement in FPS games that I've been told is difficult to watch and looks like a bot is playing. I do it less nowadays, but I still lapse into it when I'm nervous in a multiple player environment. This is actually me playing, by the way. Normally I just fish up random gameplay from YouTube, but this one's actually me. What video is this? The new video is about if Old Man Fruity can still hit quickscopes or not. The second magical thing is... Whoa! FF8 isn't the first game to have pre-rendered backgrounds. It's not even the first game to let you walk around on a CG cutscene, but boy howdy does it have a sense of style to it. And those boys knew what they were doing, man. They were showing off. Getting stabbed in the head today almost made us late for class. I assume this happens a lot around these parts though. This is war school. That exchange we had with Cypher wasn't actually like a duel to the death or anything, that was schoolwork. And Balam Garden isn't like a whimsical Hogwarts situation, it's a high school that trains child soldiers to do political assassinations. Are we the baddies? Telling someone to try and avoid injuring their partner in a gunblade fight seems kind of moot. Sparring with swords is done with blunt weapons, and often with some sort of armour on. The weapons themselves are too fast and dangerous to just say, "Don't stab your friend." And that's with a relatively precise weapon. In an instance where you're using a sharpened gunblade and armoured in whatever you were wearing when you showed up. I don't know what to tell you. You swing the big silly sword and it goes where it goes, man. It's lucky nobody got the head cut off. In this specific instance though, Squall was already down when Cypher landed that strike to the head, and I feel like this probably should warrant a sterner punishment than a mild telling off. Anyway, class is over now. Homework is to go beat up the demon who lives in the fire cavern, and it's overdue. Now, there's no other caverns in the vicinity of Balam Garden that house any demons, so I always wondered why only we get this kind of homework. Or does someone on staff just keep having to repopulate Hell Cave? Perhaps some of the students just have to go out and kill a Tyrannosaurus. Those are everywhere. We're going to pick the not rude option here. Basically, we're just going to pick whatever Squall wouldn't. Whoa! Oh no! In real time, class only lasted about 30 seconds from when Quistis came in to when the students were dismissed. You've really got to be on the ball around these parts. We're not giving Selfie a tour of the garden, by the way. I'm not sure if it's worth any seed points or not, but I know it takes forever and that I don't want to do it. The NPC on this screen is extremely important. Triple Triad is an in-universe collectible trading card game. It's also a playable minigame. As minigames go, it's one of those that people either hate or remember loving but actually hate. The rules start simple, but as you explore the world, new, incomprehensible ones are added to you, the player, and will spread to any places you visit. It is possible to card game responsibly and only spread beneficial rules by being very specific about where you go and what you do, but it's not something you can reasonably accomplish without a guide. The tiny child here runs anti-clockwise around this and the other 3 screens surrounding the central pillar. He has the powerful Minimod card in his possession, which can't be obtained any other way, but if he uses it or not in any given match is random. His name is Little Timmy, and he is Sylvie's enemy.
No way!
Let's try and actually demonstrate this card game. Off the top, the guy in the booth here is someone we actually have a shot of beating, provided we get a little lucky. Oh. The 4 numbers correspond with the 4 tiles around your card. If anything in those has a lower number, the card gets flipped. Whoever has the most cards showing their colour at the end of the game wins. The player's always blue, and the opponent's always red. It's only slightly more complicated than tic-tac-toe, and is similarly easy to work out when you've entered into an unwinnable series of plays. We have failed to defeat this man at Triple Triad. The loser of the game has to forfeit one of the cards they were playing with, and the AI will always take your best one. In this instance we lost our red bat. Joke's on him though, all of our cards were terrible. The weaker cards range from generic enemies to bosses found within the game, and the stronger ones are summonable guardian forces and player characters. There's only one of each strong card in the world, and if you lose it, it's gonna stay in the inventory of whoever beat you, under most circumstances. Nobody but you is ever gonna have multiple strong cards at once, so winning gets pretty easy after a point and remains that way until you get all the worst rules on you and quit forever. If we had have looked at the study panel in the classroom, we could have gotten our GFs early, but we decided to lose at cards instead. Interestingly, the original Japanese version of the game was far less polite, and would send you on your journey without any divine help should you fail to sit at your desk. What is a GF though? Quetzalcoatl, misspelt in game due to the devs running into their own character limit, is a Mesoamerican deity, and was represented in art as either a feathered serpent or a bearded man, but, interestingly, never as a weird smooth bird. They meant a lot of things to a lot of people in the broad span of history. The ancient American civilizations cover a vast span of time, and while there is shared mythology between the various cultures, the details don't always come out the same. This said, Quetzalcoatl worship was at its height at the time of the Aztecs. Quetzalcoatl, which I really hope I'm pronouncing correctly because I've said it 3 times now, was the god of the morning and evening star, the inventor of books and calendars, and would eventually go on to become the planet Venus. In one particularly notable outing, he and his twin brother Xolotl, they're not identical twins, Xolotl is a man with a dog's head, descended into the depths of Mictlan, Aztec hell, to gather the bones of ancient races of dead humans. Imbuing these with his own blood, he gave life to what we now know as mankind. I would not trust Squall Leonhart with this Pokemon. In gameplay terms, Bird deals an unimpressive amount of wind element damage. Here he is blowing on some bugs. Shiva, on the other hand, is the inventor of yoga, and the Hindu god of destruction and creation. He's tasked with destroying the universe once every 2 and a bit billion years with divine fire. So that another one can be ushered in. Shiva is a he, by the way, generally depicted as a man with too many arms and eyes and things, painted a ghostly white by the ash that clings to him from his divine burnings. Shiva's fire being the first and last thing in the universe. He's married to Parvati, the goddess of beauty, and has 2 kids. Sometimes Shiva and Parvati merge together to form half-male, half-female deity. Ardhanarishwara? My god, those lesbians just full-on had sex in front of those donut goblins. While Shiva is said to have a blue neck from drinking too much poison, you might notice there's not a whole heap of similarities between the myth and the video game character here. A big blue lady who deals an unimpressive amount of ice damage to all enemies. Now, it is possible that Shiva is actually just how you say Shiva with a Japanese lilt. The character might just be a pun on being cold. Any resemblance to persons real or mythological might be entirely coincidental, and the history lesson may have been entirely pointless. In which case, management have prepared the following statement. Whoops. This is the big one, by the way, if you're aiming for a funny screenshot. We're gonna name her Tall Women, wishing desperately that we had one extra character to work with. Fans of understanding things may have worked out the bulk of what we're doing to achieve our goal here, but it's about the journey as much as the destination, alright? Stay tuned. You never know where we're gonna go next. Somewhere weird and wild, I imagine. Completely untrodden ground. The main thing I was thinking of here was Final Fantasy V. You see, it's Fiesta season. Fiesta obviously being... Oop, no time for that, we've got a tutorial to watch. This will be the first in a series of lengthy tutorials on the basic advancement mechanics of the game, which are unconventional if not fairly simple. Each of these tutorials is unskippable, even on repeat playthroughs, and each make the very simple mechanics seem impossibly complex. I've heard of a lot of people bouncing off FF8 very early, thinking they'll just never be able to grasp the systems, when actually the tutorial was just made by crazy people. In short, while we can level up like in other games of the series, that's not how we learn abilities or gain the bulk of our power. In fact, leveling is generally counterproductive, we'll get into that shortly. This means that on their own, even a level 100 character can only walk around and use the attack command for modest damage. Luckily, our Pokemon know moves like item usage and spell usage, and by equipping those, we can put those abilities onto the party. Equipping a GF to a character also tends to make some of the stats light up on the main screen, which means if we have any spells lying around, we can slot those into our numbers for bigger numbers. Thus, rather than acquiring experience points, we gain strength by acquiring stuff. Chiefly Guardian Forces, which are limited but can be acquired in various ways, and spells. Magic can be stolen from enemies without having to actually fight them, and as our GFs learn more moves, we'll be able to turn items, playing cards, and smaller spells into spells. Actually using the magic is generally a bad idea. The amount of stats they give is determined by how many of them there are in the stack in your pocket, along with how big a spell it is. There's no MP in this, you just have up to 32 slots for different spells, and can carry up to 100 casts of each. If the prospect of powering up your little man through the act of finding and hoarding spells you'll never use while the moment-to-moment combat is pressing attack every time the little box appears until all the monsters go away sounds like less than riveting gameplay to you, I don't know what to say. This is FF8, brother. They made choices. Alright, it's been almost half an hour. Why are you still here? At any rate, it's finally time for some combat. Encounters in FF8 are very location dependent. Any encounter in the grassland here is very likely to be some number of bite bugs. Terrifying little creatures, about 60% more by volume, who are nonetheless extremely weak foes. These bugs have the fire and scan spells, ripe for the stealing, and the scan dialogue for bite bugs is very funny. Calm down, player, it's just a little guy. They also take double damage from wind and ice for some reason. These boys are a joke right now, but come level 20, they become extremely annoying, gaining a poisonous sting, and even more poisonous farts, which simultaneously inflict blind and berserk on the same target. I'm not joking, the bug farts. Seasoned Final Fantasy gamers will immediately pick up that this is a horrifying combination. Blind tanks attack accuracy, and berserk locks the character into attacking. It's not as bad as it sounds here though. Squall will always be in the party and has a base accuracy of 255%. A number high enough that there's genuinely no way to be debuffed enough for him to ever miss an attack. Additionally, letting bite bugs get that high level in the first place is an amateur move. Rarely in the field and frequently in the small patch of land around Balam's northern mountains, a gamer might encounter a Glacial Eye. Glacial Eyes are fully immune to ice damage, but functionally not really any different from other low-level enemies. At 25% or less health, they'll use the vampire ability to gobble up your points. When these guys level up, they gain a whole host of annoying abilities and will start throwing ice too at you, as well as the Petrify Stare ability. You can probably guess what that does. For now, they got Cure, Scan, and Blizzard spells for the taking. Straying into the forest puts you in the realm of the giant caterpillars. Or caterpillars, I guess. These guys notably deal, like, actual double-digit amounts of damage, which I guess is worth pointing out for this part of the game. They also have Thunder and Cure spells. A less than half health, they have a chance to use their Ultra Waves attack, come their turn, which deals damage to the whole party with a chance of causing berserk. The spell is actually learnable. The learnable version deals a decent chunk of spread damage, but doesn't do status, and is obtained by having Quistis eat a spider's web, which can naturally be obtained from a caterpillar. High-level caterpillars can fire a sticky web that inflicts slow, and very high-level versions inflict stop instead. So, watch out for that. Fun caterpillar trivia. Its head is the little red bit at the front. The other mouth is just a mouth. It's just a mouth. Going onto the beach at all will have you immediately beset by land sharks. This is Fastito Callan F. The F stands for fake, so additionally, this is not Fastito Callan. Fastito Callan is a medieval-style poem by J.R.R. Tolkien about a gigantic sea turtle. The setting is explicitly Middle-earth. The poem is included in The Adventures of Tom Bombadil.
Fastito Callan, an island good to land upon, although 'tis rather bare. Come, leave the sea and let us run, or dance, or lie down in the sun. See, gulls are sitting there.
Fig Fish is notable for giving an unusually high amount of AP, the currency GFs need to learn new abilities, as well as dropping fins that can be refined into water spells, a very handy get early game. A normal opening to Final Fantasy VIII sees the player immediately running down to the beach and farming fish for a while, until a very particular move can be learned. We're not doing that because it would make the outing take even longer, and we're trying very hard to not get any XP points on us. This little guy can be robbed for his sleep spells, as well as the blizzard and scan moves we already know about. He's resistant to damage while in the ground, but might use his turn to pop out and surprise you, causing him to both take and deal more damage. He absorbs water, and is very weak to the ground element, but once he starts to float, you'll never hit him. The attack where he bumps his fin into your shoe with a hollow whomp is very funny. The last enemy in this region is a rare encounter that can show up in the forests. It's... looking a little more nasty than the fish and bugs and things we've been seeing up to this point. The last enemy is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The scan dialogue claims this guy's been alive since the beginning of time, which isn't remotely close to true, but he's had a decent innings, hailing from the late Cretaceous period around 70 million years ago. T-Rex is one of the largest land carnivores in history, potentially measuring over 13 meters tall. 5 feet of that is just their giant head, those jaws containing 8-inch long fangs that can rend flesh and crush bone. All this was counterbalanced by a long heavy tail that they could use to deal moderate spread damage to all opponents at once. A low-level T-Rex would only use this attack once, however, at the start of a hunt. Despite its power, the debate over whether Tyrannosaurus was built to be an apex predator or a scavenger is still ongoing, one of the oldest debates in paleontology. If you're wondering about the dinosaur feathers situation, by the way, results are inconclusive. It seems to have been mostly a big scaly beast, but a light dusting of dinosaur fuzz or a few small patches of feathers aren't out of the question. From fossil records we can tell that a high-level T-Rex had a special bite they'd only use on someone who just hit them with a magic spell as a counter-attack, and that this attack would always inflict a critical hit. He's significantly stronger than other goons around here, but is weak to a lot of important status effects, and will go down to Renzo Kuken just the same as anybody else. Oh hey, just an aside here. He actually takes quite a lot of Renzo Kukening. This took actually quite a long time to kill this dinosaur. Okay, sorry. I'll let past me get back to it. The game will tell you to run away immediately, but if you want to stick around to steal his fire and thunder spells, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Arguably more dangerous than any of its attacks, T-Rexosaur is notably worth a heckin' ton of XP that we don't want anywhere near us. So, you've probably noticed at this point, but we're not doing a whole lot of actual fighting, electing instead to rob a few spells and dip in each of these encounters. We're doing this because it is correct. The enemies in FF8 scale as you grow more powerful, appearing somewhere in the range of 80% and 120% of the average level of your party. Even bosses scale like this, although they're mostly capped at fairly reasonable numbers. Enemies tend to get a lot more out of these levels than your guys do, especially around the level 20 to 30 range where they learn all their moves. At very high levels, the random encounters will be walls of health, and will suddenly be throwing out attacks that deal multiple status effects at once, generally outscaling any of the boss fights, and certainly outscaling you in terms of raw stat numbers, at least without some of the moves a few late game GFs can learn. In essence, increasing your number at best levels every enemy in the world in total parity with you, and at worst makes the game actively harder, and harder in the most unfun way imaginable, by making all the random encounters a tremendous slog. High level enemies do have better items and spells to steal, allowing you to catch back up a bit, but in general, the whole mechanic is extremely silly. If you want your playthrough to be as pleasant as possible, you should try and avoid ever gaining XP, maybe leveling up right at the end in a controlled environment. That said, you can gain a level or two if you want, I'm not a cop. Kill some fish for AP. Go a little hog wild. It's not a hard game. So, I've been thinking I might have an attention disorder. You've probably noticed, if you've been here a minute, I tend to bounce between things. And if not, hey, you've seen the video up to this point. This was all caused by my being completely and entirely scattered during the production process. Telling delusions of grandeur to the process of opening DaVinci Resolve and pressing random buttons for a couple of hours a day. I tend to get really, really into things and then just hard stop one day. I'll touch it again in a month, maybe. This isn't purely a thing with silly YouTube videos, it's real life as well. And I struggle with forms a lot. I genuinely have trouble filling them out, not skipping any of the little boxes, and will become depressed instantly the moment I'm confronted with one. I've known all of this for a long time, obviously, it's just never quite hit me that these might be the kinds of problems people already have a name for. I've always considered that all people are different, all brains work differently, and there's no good or bad brains inherently. Everyone has aspirations, everyone has shit they have to learn to deal with to get there. People are shy or sore losers or don't like the sound of their own voice, or, in my case, are unable to stop thinking about the many things I'm not talking about for long enough to talk about the thing I'm actually talking about. In this instance, the video could have been a YouTube short if I'd only included relevant information. So why are we here? I've been struggling for a while now to work out what exactly I'm doing. With myself, my life, and even my silly YouTube channel. And I think, for the moment, I have an answer. I want to make stuff. Right now, I specifically want to make weird art on YouTube through the medium of very confidently saying things that are probably wrong to a background of poorly spliced together footage of curiosities from the distant past. Videos like this are great for me. They're fun little micro projects with a beginning, middle, and end that can get way too into and probably still finish before the inevitable burnout hits. YouTube is not designed to accommodate this, I'm not unaware of that situation. YouTube is for chasing trends, pumping out hashtag content, and this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends.
Shadow Man.
I'm playing. Sometimes I feel bad that I haven't uploaded anything in a while, or I peek the metrics page and notice views are down or something, and I feel like I gotta start shoveling out shit too to make up the difference. It's all designed around that kind of mindset and these compulsions. An endless sea of content for the brand. Twitch is just as bad. In fact, my crisis of identity was largely caused by this email. 5% increased chat activity. Mondays, am I right? One sentence apart. I always saw my weird hobbies as just a way to engage with the world around me from a protective distance, as someone who is cripplingly socially awkward. I know there are more like me, there must be. But in large part, they're drowned out in a sea of interchangeable content creators seeking to make a living by monetizing parasocial relationships with their child audience. If there is a heart here, it's buried under so much slush you would never find it. I think what I want to do is chase the whims of my wandering mind, and to not think about who or how many might follow me on this journey, only to make sure everything's immediately accessible so my friends can watch it, if they want. This is me saying I don't know if I'm doing series or things anymore. The mood would have to strike me. I have a habit of dropping things, and now you know why. Not through lack of trying, I might add. I'll spend an evening staring at an untouched timeline in DaVinci, alternately being mad at what feels like creative block and surfing the web as my attention wanes. I'm just gonna do me from now on, I think. If that seems like something you'd be interested in, after all this time, you're probably the exact kind of person I'd like to come along with me, so welcome aboard. Oh hey, there's the fire cavern. Our objective is to kill a little god. Our buddy Quistis is gonna help. The garden gremlins require us to pick a time limit before they'll move out of the way of the door. Your choice here is purely for seed rank purposes. Lower's better, we'll get to that. 10 minutes should be enough for anyone though. That said, the timer actually appears at 9 minutes and 58 seconds, shortchanging us by 2 whole seconds. They're not necessary seconds, it's just, rudeness? Speaking of rudeness, don't pause your game and go get a drink or whatever while the timer's running in this game. It will tick down while the menu's open. So rude. We got 4 screens to walk through and a quick boss at the end, and Quistis is going to narrate the whole time. Pretty immediately the cave takes on a hellish appearance. Jagged rock formations amidst a red river, disappearing into a heat haze in the middle distance. I'm going to say this is not in fact a lake of magma though, for 2 reasons. 1, it's flowing pretty dang fast for molten rock, and 2, that would probably make the inside of the cave somewhere in the vicinity of 1,000 degrees Celsius. Contrary to what you might assume, humans can exist in the vicinity of magma without immediately melting, as long as you don't touch it and it's not in an enclosed space. It's when the heat's radiating around inside that you have a problem. A 1,000 degree cave would be an inappropriate place for a school field trip, and we haven't even had the tutorial for elemental defense junctioning just yet, so I'm gonna say this is some strange geological incident making the lake appear red. Furthering my assumptions on the nature of this cave, things actually live here. Some of them are made of fire though. I'm not sure how you want to chalk that up. The random encounters in the fire cavern always appear at fixed levels, no matter how big your team is, with the red bats appearing at level 4 and everyone else at level 5. How are we on time? Okay, this is Red Bat. He's like a bat, but red. Red bats have the lowest HP of any enemy in the game and will go away with a single hit under basically any circumstances. These ones have 34 hit points. Their ultrasonic waves can put your team members to sleep, which is annoying, but at higher levels they confuse instead, which is worse. High level ones also learn Vampire, which they'll only use at less than half health. Eagle-eared listeners may have heard me mention this is a situation that will never occur. They know Thunder and Scan. It's Bomb. I think this is my favourite bomb in the whole series, actually. He's such a little scamp. Bombs counter any attack by growing, doubling their stats. They can also explode, dealing the remaining HP in damage, and the HP's pretty dang good, so that can be a lot of damage. Except this guy's only level 5, so he can't do any of that actually. Whoops. Don't level up. Their fire spells hit worryingly hard, but prior to level 20 they are Sad Bombs, who are locked out of most of their toolkit. And Sad Bombs is an item that causes Isaac's bombs to shoot out large tears when they explode. Just run away from him, dog. We're on a timer here. Interestingly, for some definitions of the word, bombs learn the higher level fire spells as they number up, but keep the old ones too, meaning a high level bomb has fire, Fyra, and Fyraga spells to draw from, as well as the powerful Meltdown. We'll get to that. He also makes a weirdly good playing card. This is Buell, also known as Buer. Buer is a great president of hell with 50 demonic legions under his command, so watch out for that. He's a teacher of philosophy and logic, which I assume means he's some kind of debate lord demon, and he likes plants. Buer is generally depicted as pictured, as a funny little guy with legs all the way round, and here's his seal in case you want to summon him. Good luck with that. I don't know why they traded out his legs for wings, but I think they did a good job with him. I like looking at this boy. In game terms, he'll bombard you with annoyingly large spells and probably die in one hit. The scan dialogue says he's proof to magic, but he's a pretty fragile boy without his 50 legions, and hitting him with your hand instead will probably do it. He knows fire, thunder, and blizzard in case you need to stock up on any basic elements, but you do not have the time. Wow, so here we are. Seems like quite the journey we've gone on together, huh? FF8 is the first boss, and he's a recurring character, having been summonable, or battleable and then summonable, in every franchise entry since 3, although his name did briefly change to Jin for the SNES release of FF4. He's an iconic lad whose look hasn't really substantially changed throughout the series, until FF14 and subsequent numbered titles, where it all went a bit mental. But those games are rubbish anyway, stay mad nerds. As for what exactly FF8 even is, well, let me give you the scoop. Islamic jinn are similar to the demons you and I know and love, like our buddy Buell. Jinn are magical creatures that live alongside us, but are generally impossible for humans to perceive. They can appear to us if they choose, often taking the form of snakes or bugs or other nasty animals, but there's no real saying what they might or might not look like, except that they cannot disguise themselves as the Prophet Muhammad. Now, jinn aren't necessarily bad guys. It's perfectly possible for a jinn to be a good fella and a devout follower of God, but they can also be right bastards, and have a broad reputation for villainy. Mental illnesses and sleep paralysis are often attributed to jinn possession, and to this day many people across the globe wear talismans or say prayers to ward them off. A particularly rowdy jinn may instead be known as an ifrit, more powerful and rebellious than the average jinn, and with more of a tendency towards evil. Ifrit, like jinn, can take whatever form they want, but trend in the direction of smoke and fire creatures. While the proof against mortal weapons, a particularly savvy sorcerer can capture an ifrit, or even have them do their bidding, but you probably shouldn't mess about because they're proper rowdy. Ifrit in-game is Fire GF, semicolon, uses fire magic. It's a strong opponent, comma, but, comma, as it is a part of Garden's exam, comma, not impossible to defeat. Ifrit is level 6, has 1068 hit points, and deals about 80 damage a pop with his fireballs. He takes double damage from ice and water attacks, but absorbs fire, prompting a little dialogue. Fire magic ineffective? Squall, buddy, come on. That said, you wouldn't naturally assume ice is the thing that beats fire if you weren't already in FF8. That shit does not fly in Pokemon. As is, ice spells are a great way to chunk through his HP, as is the Shiva summon. I didn't play it earlier because it comes up a lot here, so enjoy.
They have tall women?
Honestly, you tend to get a lot more mileage out of the regular spells. Summons this early in the game take a really long time to activate and don't put out the most encouraging numbers. They also have their own HP stat, and if you get hit while the blue bar's winding down, it's them who takes the damage. Like in this run, where Ifrit dropped the people's elbow on tall women.
Impudent humans!
Twice.
Impudent humans!
Killing her. Them? Heck. Couple of fires into the battle, Ifrit will yell,
Impudent humans!
warning you he's about to start throwing out jump punches. These will hit twice as hard as fire spells, provided you're level 7 and don't have anything junction to anything. I normally get this very closely after,
Not bad for a human.
which is what he says when he's half dead. In this run I noticed I'd forgot to equip the magic command to Squall, and decided to try and weaken him with Renzo Kukan instead. That went poorly. Limit breaks return from FF7, but the way they work here is weird and wrong. Instead of there being a bar that fills up as you take damage, the game uses some sinister background mathematics to determine how boned you are at any given time, and from there, any given turn has a chance to trigger a limit. This is wrong in two ways. Firstly, it's real exploitable. I'll just be over here stabbing myself until my health is low enough for me to go sicko mode. The other reason is that the dice are rolled every time the action box appears, which we can make happen repeatedly by mashing the circle button, essentially ensuring that we get to use a limit break every turn. Each character has a unique limit break, and they are not created equally. Squall's limit is Renzo Kukan, which is busted. Limits tend to come with some kind of little minigame required for the player to get the most out of them. In the case of Renzo Kukan, we press R1 every time it tells us to, while unleashing a flurry of powerful physical attacks, between 4 and 8 depending on random chance and crisis level. After that's done, there's a random chance Squall will unleash a special combo finisher all on his own. The move he does is dependent on what kind of gunblade he's holding, and with the default revolver he only knows Rough Divide, a single, beefy whack with the funny sword. His final limit add-on, Lionheart, hits a single enemy 17 times, making the maximum number of hits one Renzo Kukan turn is capable of 25. With luck, he can do this every time it's his turn. Here though, just rough divide was a bit much.
For me to lose to a human. Very well. I will join you.
And the fight is over, but we missed our photo op. We gotta go again. This is, we did the wrong, I don't know. I'm sorry, I feel like I've let everyone down. I thought this video was a really funny idea. Like, it's a bad idea, and that's what was funny about it. But then I started working, and now it's been like 2 weeks. I wasn't sure why I was bothering. And if I'm not sure what I'm doing's worth it, then nobody else could be expected to watch along. I had a lot of thoughts, and a lot of unresolved questions, so I did what I always do. Put on my shittiest jumper with the most holes in it, and went for a walk. Aww. Hey, little bud. Hello. That's right, motherfuckers. 2 walking segments in 1 video. Who's gonna stop me? You know, there was a time back in the day when FF8 was seen as easily on the level of FF7. These days, 7's the much-lauded classic, spawning multiple spin-off games and a movie, and now a series of remake games that are... Look, lots of people think they're fine, I hear. Wouldn't want to meet those people. But anyway, 8 these days is seen as the weird little brother, spoken about in hushed tones. Had to recommend without a caveat, like, yeah, it's fun, but it's completely broken, and don't expect any of it to make any sense. I wonder, is that fair? I ask, does FF8 tell a story as good as 7? Does it play as well? Could its characters and settings have gone on to be as iconic as the ones that are now available as free DLC maps for Power Wash Simulator? The slaps, by the way, it's like a top 5 map for Power Wash Simulator. To all of these questions, I answer, yeah. I'm not trying to put either game down, by the way. I think they're both fire, and both are very important parts of my childhood. I used to be so scared of the big snake outside Midgar that I had to get my mum to run past him every time I started 7 over. I answer this way because as much as FF8 kinda got lost in the shuffle, I think the exact same thing did happen to 7, despite its success. Like, people know FF7, right? They recognize the branding and the marketable characters. They'll all tell you whether or not they cried at the tragic death of Henry scene. None of this shit is what FF7 means to me, though. Or any of the people that care about it, really. Final Fantasy VII is the story of Claude Strife, a pointy-haired Lego man with a sword that is too big. He's kind of a big edgy doofus, much like Squall, but honestly sorta mellows out after the very beginning. Claude is an ex-Special Forces soldier, and so he'll tell you, who falls in with a group of weird goofballs, and as the only one there who isn't a big, larger-than-life caricature, kind of ends up in the position of being group leader and straight man to an extremely strange and often silly world. He rides a motorcycle, he snowboards, he fires himself from the back of a dolphin. People ask Claude to do shit, and he's just like, yeah, okay. FF7 does have a big overarching story, of course. It's got Sephiroth, the bad wizard. Everybody knows Sephiroth. Here he is getting dumpstered by Steven Minecraft.
And in a fast way. Wow.
Sephiroth is trying to blow a hole in the world with a meteor so he can suck all the juice out of it and become a god. Just a normal one. He's way off in a cave, hidden behind a force field though, so you don't really get to interact with any of that. You just keep getting told the meteor's coming closer. Actually, you're never really sure if killing Sephiroth will even help anything. Meteor's already here, you can't unsummon it. I remember having big silly discussions on message boards back in the day about whether Sephiroth's plan could even work or if he was just blowing up the planet. The only answers being, I feel, deliberately ambiguous. What's left is just kind of bumming around in a doomed world with your talking dog and your sweary granddad and this fine gentleman. It's not a sad game necessarily. All things die, and if you knew you were going to go out, you'd want to do it committing crimes with a bunch of lovable misfits. FF7's translation's a bit spotty, and moment to moment, the stuff you're doing and seeing might not make a whole lot of sense, but the vibes are off the goddamn chart in this game. If you haven't played FF7, like if you haven't played original FF7, you would be shocked how little Sephiroth is in it. When I search my soul, deep down at the bottom of my heart, I do think 7's better than 8. The main thing that stands out to me about 8 is how beautiful it looks and sounds, and those goddamn CGs that go so hard. In terms of pace, despite what this video might tell you, and spectacle and just everything, FF8's first disc is the best part of either game by a mile. The fighting system's faster and smoother and it's nonsense, but once you get a handle on it, it's mostly being nonsense to your benefit, and there's a charm to that. The problem is that FF8 at its core is a badly written love story between two characters who aren't very dynamic or likable, and the whole thing is asking to be taken just a little bit more seriously than 7 ever was. Does it deserve to be lost to history? Absolutely not. I don't think the Heart of 7 does either, but here we are. This is the world we live in. Please buy this replica of Vincent Valentine's iconic 3-barreled revolver. I'd walked further than usual that day, straying off the beaten path away from my usual haunts. There was a weird energy about the world. I felt like my feet were trying to take me somewhere of their own volition. About here, plodding onwards down this lane with the motorway spanning out beside me, I could feel long dormant neurons lighting up like fireflies. I soon came to the realization I'd walked this road before. I remembered a tiny spruce walking alongside their parents and brother. Who knows how many summers passed. I don't remember where the walk started, but I remember where it ended. A journey progressing off into the wilds, somewhere that seemed infinitely far away as a kid, but was probably within reach to an adult with access to Google Maps. I remember our party doing a loop of a bowl lake. The lake was as still as glass, and the surrounding country was lovely enough that every now and then the scene still appears in my dreams. I'm old now. I don't know where the lake is, or was, or how to find it. And I no longer talk to my parents if there's any way I can possibly avoid it. But apparently the moment was powerful enough to bypass all of that, and leave its lingering afterimage burned into my brain like a photo negative. I searched for the lake all day, and I didn't find it. I was approaching what appeared to be a possible location when I realised I only maybe had enough walk left in me for the trek back. It had been all afternoon. The walk home was a miserable one, defeated and taking the most direct route this time, which happened to be alongside a dual carriageway and through an industrial zone. But it gave me a lot of time to think on the past I was trying to emulate. I realised this is not the first time I've tried to make this video. So, way back in the day, I had a CRT television. And the thing about a lot of CRT televisions was that they could record live footage. You'd buy blank tapes, and you could put whatever you liked on there, capturing the feed directly off of the TV. Everyone had like dozens of movies and shows recorded on these big featureless black tapes with the names misspelt on little labels. There's no way this would be allowed today. I remember I had a couple of tapes I was allowed to play around with, and I'd mostly just record random episodes of like Arthur or whatever. I also had a PS1, and I loved my PS1, but I didn't have a lot of games, so I mostly just played the demo discs that came with PlayStation Magazine. You'd play the first level, and then there'd be like a big flashy trailer, and I'd be like, whoa! And then it'd end, and there'd be like 8 more on the disc. I loved every part of this experience. I don't think I fully understood that trailers were trying to sell me things as a child, because I didn't have any money and neither did my parents, so there was no way I was actually getting anything. Anyway, one day I realised that I could record video game footage just the same as I could record Arthur, and my first thought was, I'm going to make a trailer for my PlayStation, because I love my PlayStation. I remember trying to set up like a bunch of cool moments in games, mostly game demos I guess. I remember really liking the parts of Gex where he shoots a machine gun for some reason, so those made it in. There was definitely some Siphon Filter 2 multiplayer setup, me playing both of the characters and trying to stage some kind of turn-based gunfight. It was all going to end with Ifrit being beaten in the fire cavern and going, I underestimate PlayStation! Most people don't even know Ifrit has different lost dialogue if you finish out the last of his health with Shiva, so you can make him say funny things by changing her name. Most people probably don't much care what the first boss of Final Fantasy VIII has to say when you beat him, but not me. I remembered, because of an outstanding project I've had sitting on the back burner since I was single digits years old. I've walked this road before. In times of gaming strife, I always look to my guiding star, Billy Mitchell. Now, Billy Mitchell is... Hold on. What? Excuse me? He did what? All of his stuff. Billy Mitchell, the King of Kong. Well, shit. In times of gaming strife, I always look to my guiding star, Robbie Ratcliffe.
It's like in those Resident Evil games. Talking about all the shows. The boss goes through several stages of evolution.
Robbie does a funny and informative show about video games on Twitch every Wednesday called EGI_2. Doesn't stand for anything.
You fire a rocket launcher at it, or you drop a big old truck on it.
To bother his guests, Robbie likes to tell long stories that work backwards into other long stories that work backwards into other long stories. And if you go back far enough, it always comes down to his being a child of divorce. This comes up enough that you can even get that on a shirt. Now, I'm not a child of divorce. My parents have stayed together over their shared love of being bad people. But we are all children of the past. If you ask enough questions and go back far enough, the answer will be the same.
Not a demon. Just a sad ghost who loved her family and had not gone through the process.
Describe the heat on the tongue.
We're here because we were always here. We are inherently linked with our past selves, no matter the distance. Inside every gamer is a wide-eyed child who's just happy seeing the little man move around as they press the buttons.
Little hairs on my tongue.
Nostalgia is a powerful and dangerous emotion. It's the reason why old video games and consoles are so ludicrously expensive these days. It's how people try and sell you Vincent Valentine's iconic 3-barreled revolver, and it makes it very hard to be earnestly critical about things you first enjoyed as an actual infant. What you get for that price is a little space, just for you, where everything's just... okay. You can be back here anytime. It's the place where we hid when our parents were fighting. It's the place I hid while Dad was drunk, and when very serious meetings were going on about whether or not I should be removed from school. And it's still there. You just have to want it. And, you know, maybe it's fine that there's no extended universe stuff around 8, because all of the extra stuff they bolted onto 7 is fucking shit. I think I'm ready to finish the video now. I've walked this road before. Alright squad, listen up. Sad, Renzo Kukan responsibly. Quistis, you know what to do. I actually wasn't sure what conditions had to be met for Ifrit to talk about tall women when he dies. Honestly, I wasn't 100% sure I hadn't somehow made the whole thing up. But having done a lot of experimentation that had almost certainly been done before and did not need repeating, I can tell you this. First thought was that he'd say it if you won after getting the previous dialogue about Shiva, but that's obviously not the case. Second was that Shiva would have to deal a large chunk of the damage, which had occurred in the one run where tall women never saw him coming down off the top rope. Rest in peace, tall women. Turns out, all that matters is the last hit. You get him with Shiva, he says a funny thing, anything else he says the boring thing. That took a really long time over it, I'll admit, but you know. I wasn't letting him wiggle away again.
Ah! I underestimated tall women. Very well. I will join you.
And there's my fucking screenshot. Shout out to Baby Fruity too, I got this for you. Didn't quite work out, unfortunately, and it's a little late in coming, but I hope you can appreciate the effort. Good luck with your trailer, you little scamp. Our reward for beating Ifrit is a playing card, which is much more powerful than any of the ones we already own, a ton of AP, which will come in handy, and another tutorial from Quistis before we're forced to walk all the way back out of the cave. That should be okay though, you know? It's a road we've gone on previously, huh? I hope you've all learned something today, although I can't quite imagine what that might be. Out! This is stupid. Everyone hates this. We're gonna lose subscribers. Turn it off. No! Turn it off! I swear to God. Cut the clown music, you fuck man. Fuck's sake.